The NFL schedules have been released. But did you notice? It appears unfair for a number of teams. How will they respond and how will they overcome their strong, hard, difficult strength of schedule? And how does this relate to our own lives? How do we overcome our tough schedule and maybe unfairness that we experience in life? Plus, did you see what Wemby did last night in the San Antonio Spurs? Let's go. It's Unpacking It. We're here. We're fired up. Let's get going. Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast, where we unpack topics, parallels, and metaphors in sports that relate to life and faith. I'm Bryce Johnson in downtown Mount Holly, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, joined today by my co-host, Pastor Trip Smith. We got a fun one today. When the schedule is released in the NFL, it means we're getting closer and closer. Mini camps, OTAs, all that stuff is happening, and summer is approaching. That means fantasy football is returning as well. And so hopefully you're keeping an eye on Fantasy Football Fellowship, putting your leagues together for that, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. But we've also got to talk about that jersey hanging behind me, Victor Wembanyama. What a night for the Spurs and the Thunder and the start of the Western Conference Finals. Are you kidding me? That was amazing. So we got, the question that I have following that game for us as sports fans, I'm going to give you a minute to think about it as a fan. What is the line between greatness and dominance where we all of a sudden go, that's too dominant? Now it's bad. Now it's ruining the sport. That team is too good. That player is too good. Now we don't like it because I'm concerned. Is that where we're heading with Victor? If he's already this good and already this great / dominant, what does that mean moving forward? So think about that one. We'll ask Trip about that as well. Be sure to check out our website, unpackingit.com. Also, you can always email me, Bryce at unpackingit.com. Thanks, everybody, watching and listening on all of the different platforms, including YouTube and the Glue Network as well, GLU. We're thankful to be a part of that platform and that growing platform, which has been a great partnership for us. And then also everybody on social media, those of you watching live right now, let us know you're here. Jump in on the conversation, leave a comment, rate, review if you're listening on podcasts as well. So we appreciate all of that support. We're coming off of a fun week last week for Unpacking It Ministries. We had a dinner here in Charlotte called The Big Game fundraising dinner, and we raised some money for Unpacking It. We were able to spotlight the impact that this ministry is having on the lives of sports fans, the way that God is working through this ministry, and the investment that you are making as a supporter of Unpacking It into God's kingdom, into the lives of sports fans. And so we are grateful and we celebrate all that's happening here at Unpacking It, but also specifically Thursday night celebrating what God did, and very fruitful and fun, and just great having the community of sports fans here in Charlotte together. So shout out to everybody that was able to make that great event. So we appreciate you and your support. If you want to actually support that event in the ministry, this is the end of our fiscal year here in May. So if you want to make a donation contribution here at the end of our fiscal year, we greatly appreciate that. You can go to unpackingit.com/donate. All right. We got to talk NFL schedule today. I'm wearing my Panthers jersey tonight. I'm going to hear Greg Olsen speak tonight. So I got to represent the Panthers, but then also we got to take a look at that schedule. Some national games for the Panthers has me excited. But Trip, how are you doing? And how about the Spurs jumping out to a 1-0 series lead in double overtime on Monday night?
I honestly couldn't believe it. I mean, I fully expect this series to be a great series and also sort of a preview of things to come for the next few seasons in the NBA. One team is the team that we have already established is sort of the dominant, approaching dynastic levels in the OKC Thunder. And then one is just this ascendant team where all of the attention is on Wemby, and justifiably so. He is truly he is a one-of-a-kind player. Even to say that he's a generational talent is not quite right. There's never been anything like him. But the other young guys on that team, Castle and particularly Dylan Harper, the way that he has developed, that team is ascendant, and it looks like they are reaching it doesn't look like. We now have it confirmed that they have reached the level where they can compete with the Thunder. I thought that this was going to be a great series. If you'd asked me going into it, I would have said with the rest that OKC got, with the experience that they have in the playoffs already as a team, I probably would have said I think this is going to be a 4-2 series. But now with the Spurs winning game one, which I did not think was going to happen on short rest, I think we're looking at a 7-game series that is going to be so fun to watch from start to finish. And to start with a double overtime game right out of the gate, I mean, this is going to be great. This is going to be special.
So we knew this was a possibility. Oh, these two teams meeting up in the conference finals. This will be a great series. But this exceeded expectations, especially for a game one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. I watched it this morning, and I couldn't believe that it went to overtime and then a double overtime. And it was just so, back and forth. And here's what I love, because you look at the final score, I think it ended up in the 120s, but I was watching the score kind of as the game was going on, and I appreciated how low scoring it was, because you know what that means? They're playing tight defense.
Yeah.
These two teams value defense, and I love defense, especially in the playoffs. And the other thing that we've seen throughout these playoffs are major blowouts. And we've seen some teams just put up ridiculous numbers, jacking up threes, hitting tons of threes, and even in game 7 with Detroit and Cleveland. Cleveland blew out Detroit, which was such a letdown. So to see a close game, all game, it was tight. It was back and forth. No team got up by a crazy amount. And then for it to be that tight and competitive down the stretch was amazing. And I expect this to go, 6-7 games, of course, but also I'm concerned that the Spurs don't have the same depth as the Thunder. And that's what we always talk about with the Thunder. And so if the series goes on, and now we've already played 2 extra periods or double overtime, Wemby played big minutes. All those guys played big minutes. Darren Fox didn't play. So now you're using up sort of guys' minutes. And I know they're young guys, but that makes me nervous. So that's the one part where I am pulling for the Spurs. I'll pick them to win. But if this goes deep, I think that's an advantage for the Thunder.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the Spurs are very young. They seem to be incredibly energized. Like they seem to be having a ton of fun playing. And I'm sure that they have heard the talk of, well, they're not ready to go there yet, right? This is a team that is still young, that is still ascendant. I think that I still believe that that's true, but I'm sure that they're using that as like sort of bulletin board material of like, nobody thinks that we can do this. And they came out ready to play, so passionate, like so on fire last night. You're at OKC, which is an incredibly difficult place to play, and they rose to the challenge. Wemby is just a freak athlete, an incredible player. It would be too easy to say that his success is due to the fact that he's 7'6" or whatever he actually is now. You and I were talking about before the show.
Wait, how tall is he?
I'll look and see what he's listed at. I believe that it was reported last season, and I believe that it has been confirmed that he grew a couple of inches last year. So, so he came into the NBA listed as like 7'3" or something like that. And supposedly
he's at least 7'4".
Right. He's like 7'4", 7'5". So it would be too easy to attribute his dominant and his success to his size. The way that he plays, his ball handling ability, his shooting ability,
passing,
the way that he gets to the basket. I mean, he can do a spin move and go from the 3-point line to the rim. There's never been anything like this guy. And OKC has a lot of big bodies to throw at him, but I can tell you what is not going to work is this thing that they were trying to do last night where they put Alex Caruso on him, and then like
fascinating.
Chet comes out. OKC has done that all season, and they did it last season too, where they believe that Caruso can guard a big man, and they'll put him on a 7-footer. He can't guard Wemby. They got to have, and I know the idea is he's there bodying Wemby up. He's there using his physicality and using the fouls that he has available to him. And then Chet is rotating over or whoever to kind of come block the shot or like help at the rim. Like maybe that's the thinking there. If Wemby posts Caruso up, it's over. It's done for, you know? So I get the mentality behind it, but I think they're going to have to adjust their plan a little bit for how they deal with Wemby. And I think the key for them is going to be physical with him and just keep throwing bodies at him, not to play dirty, but to play hard and to play physical and to use every foul that is allotted to you every single game and try to wear him down. Because I do think you're right. Over the course of a 7-game series, I still think it's the Thunder, but it is a much, much closer competition now that the Spurs won that first game. That's a big deal for them.
Huge. And I will say I got most excited when Wemby hit the deep three. I think that was at the end of regulation. That was silly. So I a little bit of a squeal. It was like, woo, yippoo, yeah, wow.
He's an incredible player, man.
What we see, what he's able to do already is remarkable. And so before I go further on that thought, Alex Caruso, he was doing it on both sides of the floor. This guy is a legit player. And it's interesting through the history of, I guess, sports, but specifically the NBA, there are certain players that are extremely valuable that aren't superstars. They're like MVP quality players, meaning he was so valuable last night. Like he was the most valuable player on the floor. I know Shea is the MVP of the league, but Caruso was so valuable because he's draining threes on one end, and then he's playing defense against Wemby, who's half his size or double his size. So shout out to Caruso. Very nice game. But here's the question I have as I was watching the game. As a sports fan, I am drawn to greatness. I love great players. You as a sports fan love great players. Over the years, we are drawn to Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky. We want to see, great pitchers. We want to see great quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, and the list goes on and on. I've got guys all on the wall here in the studio, jerseys, posters, all that kind of thing of the greatness of players. Also over the years, we've seen domination at times. I think Tiger Woods crossed over from greatness to dominance often in certain tournaments. Not every week, but certain tournaments. It's like nobody's going to stop him. Nobody can even compete with Tiger Woods. There were moments like that throughout his career. And so with Victor Wembanyama, who's already young, he's so young, and he's already one of the best, if not the best player in the league, the most talented and just unstoppable player. As fans, are we going to embrace this or be turned off by the absolute dominance? I already had a buddy text me this morning. He goes, I'm already fed up with it. He's a cheat code. And so will fans go, this is too much. He's too big. He's too unstoppable. Of course he's going to win. Of course he's going to dominate. Or is it more about the greatness and we respect it, we're in awe of it, and we just want to watch what Wemby can do? What is he going to do tonight? I'm on the edge of my seat. And so Shaq falls into this category, I think, during his heyday. It's like, well, dude, no one's going to stop Shaq. No one can guard him. Mm-hmm. What are you going to throw Greg Ostertag at him? Forget about it. And whoever the big guys.
Wow, good Ostertag.
That was a deep
what
cut.
A pull, yeah.
Arvydas Sabonis. I was trying to think who else was going. Vlade with the Kings.
I haven't heard the name Greg Ostertag in 30. Golly, what? That's good.
Yeah,
that tickles me.
So anyway, and even the Bulls, when they were going up against the Magic at times, like they were throwing, Luke Longley, Bill Wennington, and those guys at Shaq too. But so anyway, where do you come out? I threw this question at you this morning. Greatness, dominance, what is the line? What do we like as fans? And where does Wemby fit into this category?
Yeah, I've been thinking in my head, like across all of the major sports, across NBA, NFL, I think you throw baseball in there. I'm not hockey familiar enough to know some of the dominant hockey. Well, that's not true. But I'm trying to think, how long is the list of players that you would say were truly dominant? The guys who are like on that Shaquille O'Neal, Tiger Woods, like when they're at their best, no one can do anything to stop them sort of thing. And I think that list is actually probably relatively short for me.
Yes,
you just named a few great names. And usually as I'm thinking about those guys, now that their careers are over, I look back and I think to myself, I'm glad that I got to watch them, right? Like you're glad that you got to witness that little piece and that player in sports history, right? To get to see a little bit of like Shaq and Kobe when Shaq was really at his athletic peak, right? I'm glad that I'm old enough to remember that, to be able to remember those years of Tiger Woods' absolute dominance when if he was in the lead on Sunday, forget about it. If he's within striking distance, you're almost certain that he's going to come back and win, And I do think early signs for Wemby are that if he can stay healthy, he's the kind of guy that could be one of those players where 20 years from now, we're like, can you believe that we got to watch a 7 foot? I just confirmed this, by the way, Bryce, that coming into the league with shoes on, he was listed as 7'4". And then toward the end of last season, he was measured barefoot as 7'5.5".
Oh my goodness.
And so they're saying that he stands about 7'6", 7'7" when he's got shoes on now in the game. So he grew a couple of inches, which is crazy. He seems like he's the kind of guy that could be on that dominant player list. And it probably is more like when I look back on the scope of their whole career, I'm like, it was just special to get to watch that guy play that sport the way that he did. But there were certainly times where, like, on a game-by-game basis, I understand your buddy's frustration. You're just like, what can you even do with this guy? This dude is reaching up without really jumping off the floor and catching alley-oops and just kind of tucking them into the basket. Like, how do you stop that? And so I understand the frustration. I don't know that I think more in terms of dominant teams where there were times where you're like that team became the villain because they were so unstoppable for a stretch of a few seasons. And I think that OKC was on that trajectory, and the Spurs are here to disrupt that narrative. They're here to shut that down. But I do think if OKC wins again this year, you start talking about them as like a dominant NBA team that's tending towards like a dynasty, So it's a fascinating question. I think it's a relatively short number of players who have actually been like, this guy's too dominant. It's not fun to watch this because of how unstoppable he is. And overall, you're just like, I'm glad that I am old enough to remember what Tiger was like when he was playing in his prime and things like that.
So I think the other part of this conversation that you hit on is the difference between individual dominance and team dominance. But then you also have to throw in the conversation of dynasties, because sports are great when there are dynasties and there's one team that's sort of the standard and everybody's, trying to knock them off and try to beat them. But there is this line between, we like a good dynasty. And to me, here's where the line crossed for the Golden State Warriors when they got Kevin Durant, because then it was just ridiculous. It's like, all right, now you guys are dominant and we're talking today about unfairness. That was when it got to be ridiculous to me. And so right now with the Spurs and the Thunder, they're both great teams and we're, I think, at the start of what could be a really fun run over the next few years where these teams continue to, match up and collide in the conference finals. And I think we'll have great memories of this. It'll build on each other year after year. And again, it's always based on health, but that to me sounds pretty good. Now, if the Spurs, let's just say they swept the Thunder and now they're dominating the Thunder, well, then I think it becomes negative and we go, oh my goodness, nobody's going to stop the Spurs the next 10 years. And then we just go, why even watch, right? And there was a little bit of that when it was the Warriors and the Cavs going to the finals every year, or LeBron and against the Warriors.
Yeah, that Warriors team got there for a little while, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a little bit of turnoff on that. So I just think it's an interesting topic. Like, we have to evaluate this as sports fans. What do we actually like? And then the other part of this conversation, I was listening to Colin Cowherd yesterday. He was talking somewhat about this topic, but it got me going on it, is, the NFL is so great because teams turn around so quickly. They go last to first. And there really is no dominance in the NFL. Now, we may see it for a season here or there, but every team is able to get back into the mix unless you're the Jets or the Browns and you're just a bad team or bad ownership. But everybody else has a chance. And so in the NFL, are we limited because we don't see maybe enough greatness or enough dominance? Are they withholding from us on that? So that's another part of this.
I think, and again, I know that you and I are both biased on this, but I think that there are enough sort of criteria that I care about as a sports fan where I can just say that for me, without question, without qualification, the NFL is the most fun sports league. I just think the parity that you get, the ability for teams to turn it around and go from worst to first in just a couple of years, is something that really sets the NFL apart. The length of the season, the quality of the matchups. There are very few games that are just absolute blowouts. Like games are always pretty close in the NFL.
Right.
You know, so, and some of that just has to do with the difference between football and basketball. But I think that there are things that the NFL has done over the years and really over the decades to make their league that entertaining and that sort of equal. And I'm just thinking, you know, the thing about this is going to be such a fun series with the Thunder and the Spurs. But like, is any team in the East going to approach these two teams in the next 3 to 5 years?
I know.
It doesn't seem like it. You and I are both like Hornets fans who are trying to get optimistic about the Hornets. I do think they're building something. They're trending in a nice direction. Can you ever imagine the Charlotte Hornets being competitive with this version of like the OKC Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs in the next like 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I'm a believer. Trip.
Are you really? I don't
tough.
think that you actually
tough.
are. It's hard to imagine. And so I will say, I would love to see more parity in every sports league so that you just can't, you know, you can't have like what the Dodgers are doing in Major League Baseball right now, where it's impossible to imagine, you know, that some small market team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, is ever going to be like relevant and compete against a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, you know? And so I love the NFL for that reason, that you can see teams turn it around pretty quickly.
So that's another great.
And
that's a great example.
There are NBA teams that are just absolutely in. Their fans are in purgatory indefinitely because who knows? The Sacramento Kings are never going to be good. Like they're never going to turn it around. It's hard to figure out what a way out looks like for the Brooklyn Nets. You know, it's just like some of these teams in the NBA are just so. They're for every dominant team that is at the top and seems like they're going to be there for the next few years, there are teams that are at the bottom that just seem like they're just stuck there.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. But you bring up a good point with the Dodgers because they're now in that dominant category, which I think it turns people off. It's like, well, of course, they just pay for as many great players as they can. But in the midst of that, there is greatness that we're witnessing with Ohtani. Mm-hmm. And so to me, he's very similar to Victor, where it's like, dude, we're seeing somebody do things that we can't imagine. He's one of one type of thing. And so with the NBA, though, one player changes everything. If there's only 5 guys on the court, so somebody of Wemby's greatness allows him to then have a dominant team and bring up Castle and Harper, who are good players. Don't get me wrong, but he's elevating that whole team. Whereas we're seeing some greatness, back-to-back MVP for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he's not dominant. He's not a dominant player. You can limit him.
Yeah, he's
a shorter guy. Average guard size for the NBA. I don't know what he is, 6'5" or something. But Wemby he's crossed over, I think, or he's on his way to cross over into not just great, but dominant.
Yeah.
And so we've got to determine how we view that as fans. So that's the big topic for you as a fan, listener of the show.
I got to think more
to
about
weigh
it.
in on.
Yeah. I'm going to be thinking about it this whole series now because it is a really fascinating question and we're going to get to see it play out right in front of us for, I think, 6 more games now. I think this is going to 7.
Because every game, more people will tune in, go, man, I got to check out this series.
Yeah.
This is a great series. Look at these. Man, we're seeing some great players. But wait, Wemby's dominating. How could they ever guard him? They got this little white guy, Caruso. Like, what's he doing with his little headband? Like, this guy's going to try to stop Wemby? Really? Is this their strategy? So it's a fascinating thing to consider. All right. As we talk about this topic today, we're talking about unfairness, and we're going to take a look. We're already kind of talking about it with Wemby. There's an unfairness factor here. But the NFL released its schedule last Thursday. And everything's exciting with the release, and now the NFL, they make everything a big deal. All the teams release these videos. I thought the Titans video was hilarious, releasing their schedule video. But as far as what we see with the future of the NFL and with this schedule and what it has revealed, a few things jumped out to me. We've now added the Thanksgiving Eve game. We've eliminated the Monday Night Football doubleheaders. We have more international games, and I think we have more Saturday games or the same amount of Saturday games, but that's become a big part of this. And they've taken over Christmas, which I guess started last year or the year before on Netflix. And so the question that we all have to wrestle with now as NFL fans is how much is too much for the NFL? How many windows are too many, time slots for NFL games? Is there an oversaturation? Is what Mark Cuban talked about years ago coming to fruition, where pigs get slaughtered type of thing, fat pigs, whatever the saying was. And so is that the case? So that's interesting. But then you as a fan, what jumps out to you with your favorite team's schedule and then the overall NFL schedule approach to this upcoming season? Big games, marquee games. Trip, I'll let you jump in and offer your thoughts.
Well, I'll just say as a fan, I have no problem with more game windows. I mean, I think back to the past couple of seasons where we have had occasionally, very occasionally, these like Wednesday night games, or I think there was one international game that spilled over into Tuesday last season or something like that. I remember there was 1 week last year where there was an NFL game every night except for Wednesday night. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is awesome. Now, if that was every week of the season, I think I would probably get tired of it. I know that my wife would get tired of it. Yes. I remember she couldn't believe that 1 week. She was like, wait, there's another game tonight? Like, what is wrong with you people?
And you have to watch it?
You have to?
No, I do.
I have to watch it, honey. I have to. No, but in general, I like when the games are spaced out so that I can watch more of them instead of kind of all stacked on top of each other on Sunday. Don't get me wrong. I love that multi-screen experience on Sunday. But I do think the NFL is trending towards something like a crisis moment with these scheduling decisions that it's making, wanting to add more games. And I thought that the article that you shared, Bryce, in the show notes that was absolutely fascinating to me, that I'm kind of obsessed with now, is this article. I'm sure this is a betting website. Yeah, it's a betting website. Sharpfootballanalysis.com has this great article about rest disparity and rest edges. I had never seen kind of this advanced statistic before, but basically showing how many days of rest you have versus your opponent every given week, and what is your total rest advantage over the course of the season. And I really think that there's something to that. I really, really think that there's something to that. And so
we're going to talk about the discrepancy between that.
Yeah, there is a massive discrepancy. If you look at the top of that list, the Chicago Bears, the bottom of that list, the LA Chargers, there is a 39-day discrepancy of the amount of rest versus the rest that their opponents are getting over the course of the season. That has to be an advantage in NFL physical game like football. That has to be an advantage. And so I do think that like some of those below the surface scheduling metrics really do matter, and they're fascinating to me. And it's the reason that one of the reasons that there is so much parity in the NFL that we were just saying that we like, is that the best teams on any given season, the playoff bound teams, have to play the toughest schedules and the toughest divisions next season, So there is something to that, whereas the bad teams get the lighter schedules. That was part of what happened with the New England Patriots last season. The Panthers have pretty tough schedule this season, and it's a result of the success that they experienced last year. They made it into the playoffs. They won the division, So all of this is so fascinating to me. As a fan, I'll care about it in the middle of the season. Right now, I'm just like, give me football.
That's right. That's right. So I've got some positives and negatives as the schedule is released. So first off, I'm so excited for the Panthers to have a Sunday night football game against Detroit in Charlotte. It's been a long time since Charlotte has had a Sunday night game. So that is awesome. I hope somebody invites me to that game. So I'm waiting for tickets for that game. That'll be a good one.
I'm inviting you.
Thank you. Thank you. The one thing that I can't comprehend is why they went away from the doubleheader Monday Night Football games. I loved it because
me too.
There oftentimes that Monday night game, maybe it's not as great of a game or a matchup later in the season, but if you have two options, at least one of them will be good, or you can go back and forth. So I'm bummed that they eliminated that. I'm thrilled that they added the Thanksgiving Eve game. I think that time slot, that's a good spot. That's a good spot to go. We're making sweet potato casserole on Wednesday night with the game on in the background. I'm good with that. So I think that one works. I'm over the Christmas games. Christmas, I'm busy. I've got plenty going on Christmas. I don't need football on Christmas.
You guys have both families in driving distance. You got to give your whole day. Yeah.
Triple header on Christmas. I got no time for that.
Is perfect for a football game.
No,
for me.
I'm out on that. And I might be the last guy hanging on here, but the 1 o'clock time is the best time for football. I want to watch football Sunday at 1 to 4. Give me as many games as you can give me. That's what I want to watch. So I love the quad box. I love the Red Zone channel. And I'm running 3 TVs. I want all the games going on. It's exciting. It's boom, boom, boom. Watching one game to me is very slow. It's like one game. There's a commercial every 3 minutes.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm like the opposite. My mind is on overload. And so by them adding all these different windows, that means the 1 o'clock game is being lessened.
Right.
What's the term?
Yeah, there are fewer games.
Watered down. Yeah. It's being watered down.
Diluted, yeah.
Diluted. Thank you.
I do. There are 2 really fascinating kind of cultural trends going on there, because you're right. I'm so used to trying to watch 8 games at the same time with Red Zone and multiple screens open in front of me. I think the NFL knows that in general, if a single NFL game is on, it's going to be the highest viewed televised event of any given week, right? And so it could be Tuesday night, the Arizona Cardinals playing the Raiders. Whoever the Raiders, and people are still going to turn on. Millions of people are going to watch that game,
tens of millions.
And so I don't think they have any problem diluting that 1 o'clock window, because they're like, we know people are going to be. In fact, they probably don't want to split the views over 4 games at the same time if they can space out those 4 games at different times, different streaming platforms now at this point. But the trend that's working against that is how many of us are bored to just be sitting in front of a single slow football game at this point. It's just like we just don't watch one game at a time anymore, So, and football it's such a fun sport, but there is a lot of stoppage in play between the plays in football. When you don't have multiple games going on at the same time, you realize this is kind of a slow sport.
That's right.
So that's a really fascinating kind of contradiction of terms there a little bit. It's like, which one do I actually value more? I think spaced out football so that I can watch more of it is what I prefer. But man, there's something great about sitting down in front of the TV at 1 p.m. on Sunday and just knowing, 7 hours of commercial-free football. It's not commercial-free anymore.
No, it's not. Yeah, so I'm hanging on to like the NFL from 5 years ago. So that's it's changed. It's continuing to change, and we see that with the schedule. But what we want to focus on today, as we jump into the devotional topic, as we parallel this to our faith and our own lives, is when the schedule comes out, we can quickly identify that the strength of schedule is tougher for some teams and easier for other teams. And part of the system is to give tougher schedules to the teams that were great last year. We saw this last year, actually, because the year before the Patriots were bad. Then they come out, they have an easy schedule. They won a ton of games and went to the Super Bowl, and it benefited them greatly. And so we're able to see the worst to first. But what I started thinking about is this is unfair. There is unfairness that takes place with these schedules. And so when it comes to days off, you play on a Sunday and then you play again on a Thursday, or you play on a Thursday and then some teams get more time off or a bye week and it sets them up well. Some teams have bye weeks early in the year. Some are like midway through the year, which is perfect. Then some are, it's like way late, and that's sort of a negative thing. And so they're not even. Like the schedules are not even. And what I think is especially interesting is when it's in the same division and you start comparing, and it's like, whoa, I'm Detroit. I've got a nice, easy start to the schedule. I've got nice dome games or home or inside games for the latter part of the season. So Detroit has a bunch of things benefiting them, whereas other teams in their division have a little bit more challenges. The Packers, they play outside, which is in some ways is an advantage to them, but it's unfair for the teams that have to go play in Green Bay in December.
Right.
So there's unfairness there. And so you just go down the list and you go, okay, teams that play internationally, they have to travel more. So some teams will be in the air more than others this season. Thankfully, our Panthers don't have to travel as much, whereas the 49ers do. So the 49ers, they travel the most out of any team. So let me real quickly just run through some of this. So the toughest schedule this year, based on last year's winning percentage, the Bears, Dolphins, Cardinals, Packers, and Chiefs. Okay, SI did sort of their rankings based on how good they think teams will actually be this year. And they said that Arizona, Carolina, Miami, Atlanta, Tampa, Chicago, and Dallas have the toughest schedules.
Oof.
And so that's, concerning in that regard. And so let me have you jump in. Which of these teams that has the tough schedule do you feel like will be affected the most by it?
It's going to be a rough season for Arizona. But I think that's probably what they want, because they're probably looking at the 2027 NFL draft and thinking, who is our franchise quarterback going to be? They've got to lock down that position. But it is, fantasy guys like us, you start thinking about Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be, I think he's going to be overdrafted. Jeremiah Love, definitely going to be overdrafted. It's going to be a tough season for the Arizona Cardinals, probably also for Miami Dolphins and their new quarterback, Malik Willis. You don't envy Malik Willis, who's jumping into this difficult season schedule-wise. Can you name, Bryce, right now, can you name a single wide receiver on the Miami Dolphins?
I cannot.
You can't. You can't.
I don't know.
It's
Wait, where is Tyreek Hill?
He's gone.
No, but where is he?
He hasn't been signed yet.
Has anyone seen Tyreek Hill?
He hasn't been signed yet. He'll end up on a team by the time the season starts, but Jalen Waddle is gone, So, I mean, literally, the Miami Dolphins are just like Devon Achane and then a bunch of names that you have literally never heard of before. So it's going to be a tough season for Miami. And I do think, I continue, in my heart, I am positive for the Carolina Panthers. My head says that last season was the ceiling of what they are capable of doing with their current roster makeup. Let's put it that way. And so, yeah, when I'm looking at that SI list of those top teams, it's going to be
toughest schedule wise.
Now, yeah, toughest schedule. The top teams, tough schedule wise. Now, notice that the Panthers, the Falcons, and the Buccaneers are all on that list. So, they have to play each other, and somebody has to win that division. I think that probably means the sneaky sort of pick for like the division winner there is the New Orleans Saints, led by Tyler Shuck. So look out for the Saints this season. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. But yeah, there really is something to this strength of schedule thing. The rest thing matters a lot. But man, when I'm looking at that list from Sports Illustrated, I'm like, woo, it's going to be tough for some of those teams. And I guess we're going to figure out whether the Chicago Bears, what they did last year, was actually real. Whether this Ben Johnson-led Chicago Bears team is legit or not, because they have a much tougher go of things this season than they did last year.
When it comes to the rest, so this list is based on the disadvantage that a team has because they're on less rest than their opponents. So you have the Chargers, Eagles, Raiders, Jets, and Saints. So before you get all excited about the Saints, they're not going to have as much rest this year. But the number one team is concerning to me because I think the Chargers, it's like they're ready. We're waiting for Justin Herbert to finally break through and get to that upper echelon, and for the Chargers to be, really one of the top teams. Like we saw glimpses of it last year, and we've seen, glimpses of it over the years with him as their quarterback and now Harbaugh as their head coach. But this is going to be tougher for them. Mm-hmm. And if they do get through this tough season, it'll be clear, look out. Yeah. Look how good the Chargers really are. And so, and then I think at that point, if they do survive this season and get into the playoffs, you can feel good about them being a Super Bowl contender. I think that's what is sort of, based on they got a tough schedule because you got to go through the AFC West and you have the rest concern as well. I think they'll probably be traveling a decent amount also. And so I did see this on theathletic.com. The Patriots, the Chargers, and the Dolphins are the only three teams ranked in both the top 10 of projected travel miles and strength of schedule, which is determined by opponents' winning percentage in 2025. So that's concerning.
Yeah, that's hard. Say the three teams again: Patriots, Niners, and
Patriots, Chargers, Dolphins.
Dolphins, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of this is aligning for a tough season for the Miami Dolphins, man. Just like it could be a brutal year for Malik Willis and for Miami. Malik, a guy who I've been kind of excited to see him get a chance to resuscitate his career, but I don't think it's going to happen under these circumstances this season. But yeah, man. But hey, you know what? At the same time, you talk to these players and these coaches in the NFL, and they're going to say football is about being tough. It's about playing hard. You play the hand that you're dealt, and especially a guy like Harbaugh. He's going to have the Chargers ready to play. And so you say, all right, this is why we play the games. You show up 1 week at a time and you take on the opponent that's in front of you. And I think it's going to make for an exciting season. We sort of data nerds care about this a little bit, but when the Chargers step out on the field, one of the things that I love about them is they're like, we're going to play as hard as we can. And Harbaugh's going to have those guys ready to play. So Yeah, God, so this is making me excited for football
That's
season.
right.
I'm ready.
So now with a lot of this, the tough schedule, and we're looking at, okay, man, who's going to have it the hardest this season? And it's the schedule that was given to them, and they have to now make the choice of how they will respond. Because whether it's fans, players, coaches, they could spend the season whining and complaining, we have such a tough schedule, and they can be bitter that, man, we have such an unfair disadvantage, and man, we've got to play all these national games on little rest, and we got to play on all the holidays, and man, we're playing on a Wednesday night. This is unbelievable, and we're out of our rhythm. We like playing on Sundays, and so they could do all that, or they could control what they can control, prepare, show up, play, be tough, and if they do get through the season, the reward is the playoffs. And so they'll look back and go, man, all this tough season made us better and prepared us for a deep run into the playoffs. And they'll sort of reap the benefits of that and see what they can do once they get through it. So as we parallel this to our own lives, there is a parallel because we have the choice too. When life is unfair, when life is tough, how do we respond? Do we choose to be bitter and angry and frustrated? I can't believe how unfair this is. I can't believe this is the tough schedule I have to deal with, whatever that looks like, whatever the circumstances might be, where we go, man, everybody else has an easy schedule. Look at their easy life. Look at their vacations. Look at their kids. Yeah. They got easy kids.
I was about to say, it might literally be an easy schedule. Right?
That's right. Look at their easy schedule. They're loving life. They got so much time to rest, and it's awesome. And so we very easily can view somebody else and go, oh, they got an easy schedule. I have the tough schedule. And then it creates this bitterness and uneasiness and just a negative spirit in our lives. And so the flip side of this for followers of Jesus is, what if we actually respond differently when life does appear unfair, when life is more challenging and we have the tougher schedule? And part of the backdrop that I want to make sure that we communicate to is, even as we talk about, oh, life is unfair or fair, or things should be better on my side. Like, why is it nice for that guy over there? That seems unfair. What are we talking about? We have to go back to the gospel and realize what we actually deserve. Mm-hmm. We actually deserve death, right? The punishment for our sins. But Jesus came to offer us grace, forgiveness, mercy, and reconciliation. And so, man, that's what we rest in. And when that becomes our perspective, this whole idea of what I deserve and fairness, and it's like, I'm so grateful that I'm not going to get sucked into the bitterness of unfairness. And so that's the key part of this conversation. The other part of it is, what is the point of our life? Like, what are we doing every day? Is it all about me? Is it all about, I want life to be easy, I want things to go my way, and I want things, to line up exactly the way that I want them to? Or is it truly about serving God no matter what, living for Him, bringing Him glory, and being on mission for Him? And if that's our focus, then there will be moments where we are unfairly treated. We will experience injustice in this life. We will recognize, more injustice as that is our approach. And so again, then how do we respond to that? Will we trust Him? Will we depend on Him? And will we remain, hopeful, determined, and trusting in His plan and purposes, even when things do seem unfair and seem like, man, there's a lot of injustice going on. I can't believe this is happening, but we flip it quickly. And so let me have you jump in, and there's a lot to unpack here.
Well, I think you said the most important starting place, and really the place we have to keep coming back to, I would use the word repentance. We have to keep repenting back to the understanding that the gospel is unfair. There is a sense in which the gospel is the good news of the most unfair thing that has ever happened in history, which is that the perfect Son of God became a curse for us. He became sin who knew no sin. Our sin was placed upon his shoulders so that we could become his righteousness, so that we could receive the blessing that he deserves. And so I would just say, I love that you started off the conversation when things are unfair, when life feels tough. It's not if, right? We all know, and you hear this, you're frustrated as a little kid when mom and dad tell you life's unfair, you know? And sometimes parents can say that in a dismissive and frustrating way. I want to talk about that later in the conversation. But just to say, yeah, the world is unfair. Praise God, the gospel is unfair. That he didn't just leave me to what I deserved. He didn't leave me to the fair and proper consequences of my decisions, which would have been disastrous for me. But the gospel is the most unfair thing that has ever happened. And it's good news because it's Jesus in my place, his death for my life. He became sin so I could become righteous. So that's the place that we have to start. It frees us from all entitlement, and it makes us live from a posture of gratitude. This life today, no matter how difficult it is, it's more life than I deserve because my God is a merciful and gracious God. Now, that said, some of us are called to carry very difficult and unfair loads in this life. And so the second point that you made that's absolutely kind of the critical one is that when we start to follow Jesus, we got to recognize he wants to bring the glory of God to bear through the circumstances of our life, including the unfair and difficult ones, okay? So we got to be careful not to say that in a dismissive way. It still hurts. It can still be discouraging that life is unfair, but just recognize if you're a follower of Jesus, God can do some incredible things to tell a story of his glory through the unfair circumstances of your life when you commit to serving him. And so that's just, I want to wake up every morning with a posture of gratitude for the day of life that God has given me, and optimism about how he might bring his glory and his goodness to bear in my life and in other people's lives, even through sort of the unfair and imbalanced circumstances, the unexpected things that interrupt my day every day. And so, yeah, it's when we start to become bitter and when we start to become complaining about that unfairness that we start to get ourselves in trouble.
It's good because, yeah, as we parallel this to, these NFL teams, the 49ers, are they going to spend this season complaining that they have to travel more than any other team? Or are they going to go, you know what, man, we get to play in the NFL. We get to have talented players all around us. We get to play for the 49ers. And we're going to go out there and we're going to do, what we're supposed to do out on the field. We're going to prepare. We're going to embrace the challenges of what this season has in store. And we're going to do what we can as a team. And so for us, are we going to dwell on the things that appear unfair, are unfair? And even as I was putting together this topic, like part of me goes, wait, are things actually unfair? And I think they are. Like, I think there are things that we can just, we can identify as, this is unfair. This doesn't add up, at least according to my knowledge and understanding. And just like when we look at the NFL schedule, there are things that are unfair. It's unfair that the 49ers have to travel more, but we don't see the bigger picture and we don't see how all the schedule comes together. And there's the aspect too of God is in control and he's working his purposes and plans in ways that we can't fully understand. And so, we can view it as unfair, but we also trust in the character of God, that he is good, that he is loving, that he is just, that in the end, that we get to spend eternity with him. And so even in the unfairness, it's like, we're good, like we'll be fine. And to your point, yes, it is tough. Like we might have a tougher schedule. And I would argue as followers of Jesus that when we are all in, it is going to be a tougher schedule than our buddies that are just living for this world. And they're living for the next vacation. If that's all life is, it might look a little easier. And they're going to have an easier schedule than us. And that's so are we willing to embrace that? That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. This can be such an opportunity for our devotional lives to press into deeper faith in God and deeper worship in him, right? You said he's loving and he's caring for all his people. And that's absolutely true. We also have to remember that God is absolutely sovereign and he is wise in a way that goes beyond our comprehension, right? And so every single day, God is weaving together the story of 7 billion lives on this planet with varying degrees of unfairness. Usually we think of unfair in negative terms, but we also benefit, all of us benefit from unfairness in some positive waves as well, right? And so he is weaving together billions of stories and trillions of interactions every day in the way that is most going to maximize his glory, is going to bring his kingdom, and is going to save as many people as he can save in human history, right? And so I do think there will be a day when we're in the new heaven and the new earth, when we stand before the Lord, and we might be able to look back on our lives and look back on human history and say, there was something unfair about that. But I don't think that we'll be able to say there was something insufficient or inadequate about that. We'll only be able to say, God, the plan that you put together in history and the plan that you put together in my life was the one that most maximizes your glory and most maximizes your plan for salvation. That's something that goes beyond our comprehension in this life, but we can acknowledge that and worship God for that. And then if that is true, then that starts to reframe our thinking of, okay, well, why is it that my buddy can afford X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't look like I'm ever going to be able to, right? Why is it that this family seems to be having so much luck, so much prosperity in their sort of desire to have children and in their fertility, and me and my wife can't, figure out how to have our first child, right? That's a place where a lot of couples and a lot of women feel like unfairness is that question of infertility, right?
Definitely,
like it comes up in our lives. Those are questions that we are supposed to ask before the Lord, but God invites us to ask them non-cynically. That is, he says, come to me with your questions about unfairness, with your areas of hurt, even with your proper complaints, but come to me with the understanding that I might actually have an answer for you that is better than the one that you would come up with for yourself, right? And that's a really hard thing for us to do. To say, Lord, I don't understand what you're doing and sort of the inequity and the things that feel unfair to me, but I trust that you want to give me more of yourself, right? It may be the case that for those people that can afford to go on vacation every quarter, 4 times a year, that they're missing out on the opportunity to really learn contentment from God and to rest in the Lord in a way that you will get to understand because you're going to him for your contentment and rest, right? Don't hear me saying that judgmentally towards one party or towards the other, but the unfairnesses of this life are invitations from God to step into trusting him more and receiving the good gifts that he wants to give us that are apart from kind of the material plane of this world. He wants to give us more of himself. He wants to give us more of his grace and his glory, and that's something that he pours into the unfair places in our life.
Yeah, I guess we're adding the layer of comparison to this conversation, but that is kind of at the core of this, because if we're comparing, the Panthers schedule to the Chargers schedule, we go, wait, that doesn't seem fair that this and that, and wait, this team gets to play on this day, and they only have this many 1 o'clock games or 4 o'clock games and all of that. And so the challenge for us today is to not get so caught up in the comparison that leads to thinking things are unfair, and just embracing whatever vacation we're going on versus worrying about or being bitter about somebody else's vacation and the life that they're living. That's where the comparison and the unfairness starts to then create the bitterness and the negativity. So that just catching ourselves, I think, is part of this. And then more importantly too, is, are we surrendered? Are we surrendered to God? Are we humble before God? And are we trusting him to help us endure when life is unfair and we're facing the tough schedule? It's like, man, one obstacle after another. It's like, wait, we got another Thursday night game? We got another game against a divisional opponent?
Right?
Yeah, another top quarterback. We got to face this top quarterback again? And so in that, we recognize that the eternal glory and the blessings to come are absolutely worth it in light of the challenges we encounter. And so Paul, who writes about the very difficult circumstances that he faces as he sets out to tell everyone about Jesus, right? So he's on mission to tell everybody about Jesus, how he's transformed his life. And he writes this in 2 Corinthians 4:17. For our momentary light distress, this passing trouble is producing for us an eternal weight of glory a fullness beyond all measure, surpassing all comparisons, a transcendent splendor, and an endless blessedness. And so he's so focused on eternal glory, God's purpose, God's plan, salvation, helping people understand who God is and how Jesus changes their life and what he did on the cross, that all the stuff that he has to deal with, the challenges that he faces, the difficult circumstances, the tough schedule that he's embraced, none of that compares to ultimately what God is doing and will do, and the eternal glory that is in store. And so do we have that kind of perspective? It's hard. It's hard to have that perspective. But this is the encouragement that we find here from Paul.
Yeah, and I would say the only way that you can gain that perspective is to be honest in conversation with God first, and then with other brothers and sisters in Christ. Right? You hit the nail right on the head, Bryce. It's like there is a difference between saying, okay, I just look at the world around me, I look at my life, and just saying objectively, okay, life is unfair. But then when we start to apply that should word, or in this case, that should not word, life shouldn't be unfair. I don't deserve this. This shouldn't be happening. I should have what they have. I should be in the position that he is in. That's when we start to get in trouble. God invites us to come to him with the sort of felt discrepancies between what we desire and what is going on in our actual lives, but coming to him with the expectation that he might actually give us an answer, and the answer might be more of his grace, more of his glory. And so in this case, the verse it's such a wonderful verse, 2 Corinthians 4:17. It's one that is well worth memorizing. This light momentary affliction, right? Well, there are so many times where it doesn't feel like light momentary affliction. It feels heavy and it feels hard. But what that verse is saying is, if you could understand the glory that this is preparing you for, the weight of glory that you are destined for, then you would feel that this is light and momentary by comparison. Okay. And so it really is the case. It is a wonderful promise from God in his word that he can use the places of felt mismatch and discrepancy and unfairness in our life to prepare us for the glory that we're made for with him. We're going to get that in the new heaven and the new earth. We're going to get that in resurrection life, but we can start to have it sort of trickle down into this life and really experience it when we go to him in prayer, naming the unfairness in our life, without bringing him a strong, God, you should be doing it differently. You should be doing it my way, right? We come to him with humble trust, expecting him to fill our lives with more glory.
Speaking of trust, so the other part of this conversation is there will be situations and seasons in life where we are mistreated unfairly, where it's like, wait, I didn't do anything wrong here. Why am I being mistreated? What are we talking about here? This doesn't make any sense. And there may be times like that as we're on mission for the Lord. And, again, we'll think, I don't deserve this bad schedule. I don't deserve this tough schedule. And it's unfair that I have to deal with this. But Jesus is our perfect example of mistreatment and how he responded. You talked about it earlier. Jesus lived a perfect life, yet he's the one that went to the cross and died on our behalf and was mistreated, even to levels that's like, wait, man, why do they have to be that hurtful and mean to him? But that's what he experienced on his way to the cross and on the cross. And so that, if you want to talk about unfairness and mistreatment, Jesus is the face of that, right? But here's what it says in 1 Peter 2:23. While being reviled and insulted, he did not revile or insult in return. While suffering, he made no threats of vengeance, but kept entrusting himself to him who judges fairly. I love that phrase, kept entrusting himself.
Yeah.
Because we I don't know, sometimes I'm a word guy, but it's like, I trust God, but entrusting myself.
I'm trusting myself into him, right?
Yeah.
That feels more intimate, more all kind of self, life casting. I'm throwing my whole self onto him. Yeah, I do love that entrusting language. Yeah,
that's good. So that's the example that Jesus gave us, as he trusted the Father who sent him, and also recognizing the character of God.
Yeah,
that God judges fairly, and that's who we entrust ourselves too. And so when we face these moments or seasons where it is unfair, we're mistreated, we've got to remember the character of God. We've got to entrust ourselves to him and know too that as we seek him, he'll provide what we need. He'll be with us and he's going to accomplish his perfect will. And so that's what we cling to in the midst of these challenges that we'll absolutely encounter.
Man, that's amazing. I want to trace just a thread through scripture here just to make this really practical for us. There's a verse where Paul says, "Be imitators of me as I imitate Christ Jesus," right? So you remember when Jesus is in the garden before his crucifixion. And if you believe what the Bible says about the crucifixion of Jesus, he didn't find himself there by accident. It was a plan that he had, his Father had made from eternity past. And yet when he's in the garden, he's in a moment of extreme unfairness. He is feeling the weight and the suffering of the unfairness that is about to happen to him. And he says, "Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." So he raises the unfairness to his Father. And he says, "Here's what I would like for you to do." I think that it's really important that Jesus does that in that moment because he's modeling how to do that with the Father. And the Father intentionally rejects Jesus's request there so that he can give us a yes to our request when we say, "Let this cup pass from me," right? But then Paul later on in 2 Corinthians 12, it says, "There's this thorn in my side that has just been nagging me forever. It makes my life painful. It makes my ministry difficult." And he says, "I prayed 3 times to the Lord, take this away from me." And then there are those famous verses, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weaknesses." So Paul says, just as I imitate Jesus, you imitate me. It's totally okay for you to come to the Lord with the thorns of unfairness, with the cup of difficulty in your life and say, "God, take this away from me." But if he says to you, "I'm not going to take it from you. I'm going to bring my grace to bear in and through this suffering, in and through this weakness," then we say, "Okay, not what I will, but what you will. Make your strength sufficient through my weakness." And he can tell a much better story through the unfairnesses of our life than the fair, quote unquote, fair story that we would come up with for ourselves. And so I would just say, practically, that's what I want to do. I want to bring my places of suffering and my real complaints to the Lord. But when he says to me, "No, this is the path that I have called you to walk," then I want to say, "Not what I will, but what you will. And would you just bring your strength and your grace to bear through my weakness?" And he answers that prayer in beautiful ways that change our lives and change the world.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I hate to even add anything to that, but I wanted to share one final verse. One final verse. We'll wrap it up. Psalm 9:9-10. "The Lord is a refuge for the persecuted, a refuge in times of trouble. Those who know your name trust in you because you have not abandoned those who seek you, Lord." So let's keep seeking. Let's keep trusting. And to your point, let's keep going before the Lord. Hey, I'm wrestling with this. I'm concerned about this. This doesn't seem fair. I'm being mistreated, but you are my refuge. And so I trust in your will. And man, then let's just be filled with gratitude as well for what Jesus has done for us. If we've placed our faith in him, what he's done. And man, that's unfair. Wait, he had to go to the cross on my behalf? Let's be reminded of that when we're about to be bitter and complain and whine about the unfairness in our lives. Let's have more of an eternal perspective and a gospel-centered perspective on that as well. So,
amen.
Any final thoughts?
No, that's beautiful.
All right, there you go. So that's this week's devotional topic as we talk unfairness in sports and life. And I think there are other examples in sports that we didn't even get a chance to get to today. But that's a part of the conversation as well. And actually, we haven't even talked about the PGA Championship. But I mean, golf is one of the more unfair sports when you factor in weather and when your tee time is. The poor guys on Thursday were teeing off at like 6 a.m. That seems unfair. So there are all throughout sports, but the NFL schedule in particular, a lot of unfairness there.
This time of year, fans love to complain. Yep, that's right.
No denying that. I do want to mention our sponsor.
You know what's funny about did you watch any of the golf?
Before we do that, I want to mention our sponsor
okay.
today. Let me give a shout out to Upward Sports because the World Cup is right around the corner.
Ooh.
And so celebrate the World Cup with soccer. What better way to celebrate than starting your own Upward Sports soccer league? With so many families watching the games, kids will be excited to get on the field and play. Upward Sports is ready to help your church launch a fall soccer league. You'll have support every step of the way, from communication tools and marketing materials to jerseys that celebrate the special occasion and amazing ministry resources. Plus, to help your ministry get off the ground, Upward will send you 2 free soccer goals when you create your league. Don't wait. Schedule a call with the Upward team today, and they'll help you create the best timeline for your soccer launch. Learn more at upward.org/soccer. So the World Cup is coming, and man, leveraging sports and leveraging soccer specifically to reach your community, Upward is here to help. So we appreciate Upward and their partnership. And the World Cup's coming quick. Somebody asked me about that last night. So it is on the radar, and we're already planning on talking about it in June. So be excited about that. But in the meantime, the PGA Championship over the weekend, Aaron Rai, the winner. What was your big takeaway?
Well, my big takeaway was there were a lot of players who were talking about the course setup, particularly the pin location. Most notably, our boy Scotty Scheffler, who just seems to he kind of likes to complain about everything these days, and usually in a pretty funny way. But there a lot of the players were complaining about the difficulty and the conditions of the course, and yet I saw going into Saturday's round. There was some little stat on the screen about, like, usually we know that the people who have a chance to win the tournament need to be within 6 strokes of the league going into Saturday, going into the third round. And there were 63 players within 6 strokes of the lead, which was the highest ever for a major PGA event. And then there were 21 players within 4 strokes of the lead going into Sunday, which again was another close to a record. And so what was so funny to me was, first of all, guys who just get to play golf for a living, the typical fan out there watching doesn't want to hear you complain about the conditions on the course. You know, they're like, we would love to be out there playing. But second, all of these players were complaining about the unfair conditions on the course, and yet there were more players within striking distance of first place than there have been in any tournament in recent history, right? And so to me, that suggests, well, like, what exactly is your definition of fair? And does your definition of fair just mean easier for you? I think there's a little bit of a corollary there to our devotional topic, that sometimes what we mean by life is unfair is life doesn't seem to be set up for me specifically to succeed. And you're like, I'm not actually sure that that's the definition of unfair. And so I don't think that I would want to see that sort of situation at every major golf event, but it was super fun going into the weekend to see, like, more than 50 names, bunch of guys that I had never heard of who really were within 2 strokes of the lead. And it was a super fun weekend to golf. I mean, go on Saturday, even as kind of the final groups were getting into the back 9, there were still about a dozen guys who had a chance to get up there to the top of the leaderboard and win this thing. Aaron Rai seems like a great guy, and so I was happy to see him win. But I thought that it was a really, really fun tournament. It was a nice change of pace from where it usually seems like there are 3 or 4 guys that really have a chance on Sunday. There were 15, 20 guys that had a chance to push up into the lead on Sunday, and it was fun to watch going down the stretch.
As we talked about earlier, what do we want as fans when it comes to parity, dominance, greatness? This tournament, and it's sometimes majors set up for this, where, wow, this guy came out of the blue and won. And man, we know that Rory's great. We know that Scotty's great, but maybe they weren't as great as they needed to be this weekend. And yet, for one weekend, Aaron Rai can do that in a major. So that's a fascinating part about golf. Every once in a while you see that in, basketball, a guy gets hot from 3 or whatever. But then at the same time, Rai, he's an unbelievable golfer. It's all like we're comparing these guys to other greatness. But I think that conversation that we were having earlier factors in too, because do you just want to see Rory or Scotty win every week and see the greatness and see domination? Do you want somebody to win by 6 strokes? In some ways, he was dominating a little bit on Sunday. He never looked back after the 9th green, and so he ends up winning by 3. But you know what jumped out to me? This will sound ridiculous, but golf is all about names, and you're looking at the leaderboard, and you're like, all right, what names do I know? There were times when that leaderboard had some names that we knew, but the most unique names, last names, first names. I mean, Maverick McNeely. What a name.
Great name.
Let's go. I mean, Aaron Rai, R-A-I. I mean, that's a fun one. Then you go Smalley. You got Oberg. So you better know how to pronounce that, because that looks like an A to me. So Oberg.
It's got the umlaut.
That's right. You got Schauffele. You got Kidda.
Well, that's Xander Schauffele is a big name golfer.
No,
okay,
Kitayama.
So I gotta yeah.
No, I'm saying there are names. I'm saying the actual names.
You just said the pronunciation.
These are.
Well, golf has become.
These are not Smith and Johnsons. This is even Scheffler. I mean, we're talking some very Goddard, Gracerman, Puig, Jaeger. I mean, so anyway, there was a moment where I took a snapshot of the leaderboard, and I go, these are the names this week. Wow.
Golf does have a really diverse. I mean, it is a truly international sport, and it has become a world sport. And so you get some great names up there on the leaderboard. But you're right. I guess it was a particularly unusual mix of names this weekend.
There you go. So that's an absurd take. But it's funny. I just used the name Smith and Johnson. That's who we are. I didn't even realize that.
The two most common. We're again. Life's just unfair to us Smiths and us Johnsons, right? Yeah, the two most common last names in the whole. Yeah,
Maverick McNeely, man. That's a name right there. That's a golfer. That's pretty good. All right, we'll end on that goofy note. For Trip, I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.